Hi, everyone. Hi, welcome. I'm Sarah. I work at the VA, and I'd like to thank you all for coming to our program this afternoon. We call it Tents to Tea. About once a quarter, I have the pleasure and honor of organizing this event as a way for our women veterans to meet and to share their stories. I'm a veteran. I retired from the Air Force in 2006, but I must tell you I spent 4 years in the Army. I enlisted in the Army. I had just turned 18. I've been many places, but one of the places I served was a place called Camp Casey in South Korea, very close to the DMZ. And when I was, anyway, enough about that. As I said, about every 3 months or so, we get together to honor our wonderful female veterans as they meet one another, tell stories, and forge friendships. We have all our wonderful generations here today. We have our more seasoned veterans and our more recent veterans from Iraq and Afghanistan. So I'm glad you're here. We honor all of you. But where are our pioneers, those who were first? Where are our World War II women veterans? Ladies, I know you're out there, so please raise your hands. These are the women who paved the way, all the way to the present. Women who are serving today, who are able to be all they can be, to borrow a phrase from one of the services, because of what these early pioneers did. But I'd like to recognize all our veterans on this celebration. So please, if you served and you're out there, raise your hands. Thank you. All in fact, that's one of the things I'd like to do this afternoon. There are 5 veterans of World War II whom I've asked to join me on the stage to tell their stories. Helen, Bessie, Louisa, Lucy, Carol. But before we do that, I'd like everyone to please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. As my 5 special guests make their way to the stage, I want to share part of an article I ran across the other day. It's entitled, "We Served Too." We go by many names: daughter, sister, mother, aunt, grandmother, children of the Great Depression. But the name we are most proud of is veteran of the Second World War. We served too. We served too, some 400,000 of us from all over the country. We heard the call and joined to do our part for our country in its hour of need. Maine to California, New York to Florida, and many places in between, we women served too, at home and abroad, in offices, in hospitals, in foxholes, recruiting, guarding prisoners of war, training pilots, caring for recovering soldiers, working in the motor corps. There was no job too small or too big for us to do. And that is the perfect segue for our conversation. The World War II ladies and I have prepared and rehearsed a little routine for all of you. We'd like to share a poem written by one of those early pioneers, Irene Davy, who passed away at 104 years old. This is in her honor. It's entitled, "We of the Motor Corps."
Ready, go! Left, 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 right, left. Forward.
We can drive them o'er the plains.
We can drive them through the valley and o'er the rough terrain.
We will drive them in the sunshine.
And through the pounding rain.
We of the Motor Corps.
We will always keep them rolling.
You can bet we'll keep them rolling.
We will always keep them rolling.
We of the Motor Corps.
We can drive the mighty trucks.
And we drive the little Jeep.
Drive them through all sorts of peril.
And you'll never hear a peep.
Drive them through the desert sand.
While we are lending you a hand.
We of the Motor Corps.
We can drive the car of mercy.
For the wounded and the sick.
Drive the staff car too.
And get you there double quick.
We can drive the weapons carrier for the arms that your boys need.
We of the Motor Corps.
Do not think that we are tough boys.
Because we look a little rough.
We can prove that we are ladies.
At the same time, do our stuff.
We will drive them through the strange land.
Just to offer you a hand.
We of the Motor Corps.
So now, ladies, can you share with us what it was like at the beginning? What made you decide to enlist?
Yeah, the war broke out in 41. December 7, 1941. But my mother, me being the only daughter and my brother going in, wasn't gonna sign for nothing. I begged. Then the lieutenant, she came over to the house and started saying, well, if your daughter changed into that dress uniform, would that make her a different person? My mother said, I hope not. There's your answer.
Well, I lived in New York my whole life, and the Hudson River is there. My dad used to take us on the ships when they came in to visit, just like they do in Rhode Island. I always admired the sailors. I had wished I was a boy. I wanted to be a sailor. So as soon as the opportunity came to join the Navy, well, first of all, you had to be 20, and I wasn't 20 yet, but as soon as I turned 20, I went down and joined the Navy.
Well, I was working for an insurance firm in Providence, just doing the work, you know. I was married. My husband was killed. The ship was torpedoed. We were together 9 weeks. 5 months after we were married, he was killed. I wanted to do something. Don't ask me why. I joined the waves. I just did.
Well, we were up in Boston, me and a friend of mine, and we both saw a sign or something, you know, join the army, do something for your country. So we both signed up, and, well, when she got home and told her father, oh, that was out.
My mother and father signed because I was 20. I went down for the interviews. When you go in to join, it was the first time in my life that I had ever fainted. I have difficulty with my veins. They're very small. And they kept probing and probing and probing. When did you faint last? I said, I have never fainted before I got here, and I've never fainted since.
I told my mother, and my mother, you know, she didn't seem to object at the time. Not until the night I was leaving. I had already signed up. And she says, I don't think you should go. Well, a very good friend of hers was at the house at the time. And she says, you know, Letty, she has to go. Because if she doesn't go, she's going to be age-4. And they're going to come and get her and put her in the brig. My father, he gave me great advice as I boarded the train. No matter what you do, always keep your chin up and your head held high.
Well, I was working in a department store in Providence, Shepherd's. My father was very reluctant, but my mother, well, I think if she had been young herself, she would have signed herself up, so I had no problems on that side. But they both had a sign for me to go in. So we went down to the train station in Providence. We met a few other girls going to boot camp in New York City, and we traveled all the way together to Grand Central Station. And then we were marched to Hunter College.
That was your boot camp. That's where everybody started. You learned the marching formations and to follow orders.
I was there. I was at boot camp at Hunter College. I was there, oh, I don't know how many months. There was a lot of walking back and forth, parading.
I was at Fort Oglethorpe down Georgia. The weather there, it was tough. We went in a group. They took us to the train station. It seemed like we were never going to get there. We had to eat on the train and sleep. We didn't even have bunks. It was a long trip on the train.
We had muster every morning on the street level. Then we would march to the college for breakfast, and then we marched to classes. And then we would march to the field where we learned more marching and how to respond to commands.
Weren't you telling me about some?
Oh, yeah, that's right. We were often singing the song, I don't want no more Navy. Gee-ma, I want to go home.
Oh, I know that one. They say that in the army, the coffee's mighty fine. Well, it's good for cuts and bruises, but tastes like turpentine. Oh, I don't want no more of Navy life. Gee-ma, I want to go home. The chicken in the army, they say, is mighty fine. A drum rolled off the table and smashed a friend of mine. Oh, I don't want no more of Navy life. Gee-ma, I want to go home. The clothing that they give us, they say, is mighty fine. Well, me and half my regiment get on there. Oh, I don't want no more of Navy life. Gee-ma, I want to go home. The salary that they give us, they say, is mighty fine. They give you $50 and take back $49. Oh, I don't want no more of Navy life. Gee-ma, I want to go. Gee-ma, I gotta go. Gee-ma, I want to go home.
We had a terrible drill instructor, some chief corpsman of some kind. And we had had a series of shots in our left arm. And he kept giving us dress right over and over again. And our arm ached from all the swelling from the shots. Now that was tough.
Well, half of us were sick. All of us were listless, uncomfortable from those shots. But some of the girls passed out. I mean, it really didn't bother me much, except my arms were heavy and they ached.
Well, after the day was over, we all got together in a circle in the evening and cried about our circumstances. One girl missed her boyfriend terribly. Another one missed her dog. We had Kleenex in the center and we just sat there and cried. One of the officers came to the door, he opened it, looked in, saw what was happening and went right back out again.
Every day you had to get up at 6 a.m. in the morning, march, no matter the weather. We had to go to a place and put our gas masks on if we needed them. And they told everybody, don't wear your makeup. When I took the mask off, I had lipstick all over my face. I got in trouble because of it. It was tough. One sergeant was like, get the lead out of your pants. She was mean.
Well, when I was in boot camp, I remember being in this assembly. And in this one assembly, this woman officer got up and she said, there are 200 women in this assembly. 1/4 of you will be having that special time of the month at any given time. We cannot have 1/4 of you not taking a shower. You will all take a shower every single day. Well, growing up, you never took a bath when you had that special time of the month. You never even washed your hair. I mean, when you were in high school, if you told your teacher that you were regular, you didn't have to take a shower because nobody took a shower during that special time of the month.
So she actually said, you will take a shower every day.
And I said, really? And guess what? I took a shower every day, and nothing happened. That was such a shock to me. I still remember it to this day.
On Sundays, they had a Catholic service and a Baptist one. The Baptist one, they would sing and sing, and they carried their song back to the barracks. A friend of mine asked me, why are you going to the Catholic service? It's only an hour. The Baptist one lasts 3 hours. I said, well, then let's go. So we used to go to the Baptist service just to have 3 hours of rest, peace, and quiet.
We were reviewed by Eleanor Roosevelt. Well, that was quite an experience. It was July, or maybe just into August. We were wearing wool uniforms. Our summer uniforms hadn't come through. It was so hot in the sun. There was no shade. And we were standing on this embankment. And some of the women just rolled right down the embankment. They were having heat stroke. No one warned us about not locking your knees. And their eyes rolled back in their head. All you could see was the whites. The foreman had to come and take them out on stretchers.
What types of positions did you fill? And Carol, what kind of job did you have?
Well, after boot camp, I was a supply person. They said to me, would you like to go to Hawaii? I sat back and I said, I joined the service to serve my country. Wherever you want to send me, I will go. So they sent me to the CB base here in Rhode Island.
We were given 3 choices for duty assignments. And I chose New York, and Chicago, and San Francisco. But I really wanted New York. There was a picture in my 4th grade geography book of the Empire State, and I wanted to see it.
At basic training, they came in and said, we need so many MPs.
Military police.
And they started pointing. You, and you. We didn't have a choice. We all got transferred out to different bases. At that time, the women, unless you were nurses or medics, you didn't go overseas too much. So I was at the Boston Army base most of the time. All we had was a club, a whistle and a sentry box with a phone in it.
You know, that was the sad thing about being in the service. You meet so many wonderful people, get to like them, and then you have to say goodbye and never see them again.
Which branch did each of you serve in? We have the Waves, the Army, the Coast Guard. The Waves stood for?
Women accepted for volunteer emergency service.
I was in the Waves, but my friend was in the Coast Guard. For the Coast Guard, it was SPARS. It was a shortened version of their motto, Semper Paratus. Or as she always liked to say, it meant always prepared. But she always kidded around about it. She used to say, seldom prepared, always ready.
And for the Army, it was first...
The WAAC's, Women's Army Auxiliary Corps, and then later the Women's Army Corps, WAC.
As I remember it, the Waves...
Oh, that reminds me. I got another song for you. A lot of you might remember this. It's called Colonel Bogey's March. Duty is calling you and me. We have a date with destiny ready. The wax are ready. Their pulse is steady. The will do set free. Service, we're in it hot and soul. Victory is our only goal. We love our country's honor, and we'll defend it against any foe.
As I was saying, the Waves came first in July of 1942 as an official division of the Navy, with the SPARS later that year. And then the Army, with a change from the WAAC to the Women's Army Corps the following year. And then, about a year later, came the WASPs, Women Air Force Service Pilots. So, by the end of 1943, all the branches had women serving officially.
The 3 years I spent in the Waves completely changed my life. I would have been a small-town girl. Instead, I turned into a cosmopolitan, reading the New York Times instead of the Denver Post, there was a women's service center, tickets to a Broadway play, the Metropolitan Opera, all at no cost. A uniform was our ticket.
When I was in basic training, when I finished the schooling, I was supposed to be assigned to a place, a job at recreation. I remember it was wintertime, and we were all singing a song about Christmas, bells of white Christmas and all. Anyway, I was on this side of the wall, and my boss, the captain, went into the office to talk to the lady in charge of recreation. And he said, I have a new trainee, she'll be working with you. And then I heard her say, there'll be no Jews in my house. I never realized. I didn't even know how she knew I was Jewish. On my dog tags, it must have listed Hebrew. So I didn't say a word. I went straight back to headquarters and left them talking. So when my boss comes back, he comes back to headquarters, and he says, oh, this is where you disappeared to. I said, I'm ready. Ready for what? I'm going home. What do you mean? I don't have to work in this army. I'm not changing my religion. So he said, we'll find other plans for you. And he did.
Well, because of the Women's Service Center, I was able to hear my first opera. My Coast Guard girlfriend and I saw the bulletin board. There were 2 tickets for a Wagnerian opera. So we went to this very luxurious apartment. We were let in by a maid in uniform. She ushered us into the bedroom of the woman who owned the seats. We had row 5th or 6th center, and she wanted to see the people that were using her seats because everyone knew they were hers. And she was in bed on pink satin sheets and pillowcases, tied out from all the work she did to arrange a Red Cross and all. So we used those tickets. And my friend said to me, look at the people in the boxes. I do declare that's Mrs. Vanderbilt. And it was. That was exciting.
Now, I was at Fort Sam Houston in Texas, and I was not on post too long when they decided that women would become a part of the military, not the auxiliary.
The change from the WAAC to the WAC.
So in August 1943, we all had to take a new oath and become members of the Army. And all of a sudden, I received my orders. I'm going overseas. I'm going to New Guinea.
They gave me a job as a recruiting officer. And they asked me, what kind of country do you want to work in? I said, someplace warm, because I get cold very easy. And I've already had pneumonia twice. So they gave me what they call the Southern Command. It was Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama. And we all had to do our training in Des Moines, Iowa. Lo and behold, I come down with the measles. And all of us, everyone in the barracks, we all had to be quarantined. And they all hugged me. They said, now we don't have to wash floors. Now we don't have to clean the grease trap in the floor. Now we don't have to serve the food. They were as happy as could be.
All the time I was in as an MP, we worked 11 o'clock at night to maybe 9 in the morning. The Boston Army base is the longest base you've ever seen. Miles and miles. It was so cold, we had to wear long johns, and we women changed duty every 10 minutes.
Oh. Well, I was in New Guinea for 9 months. One night, I'm sitting in a foxhole, and it's pouring. And Tokyo Rose says she's going to bomb. I said, she's not going to bomb, it's raining.
For those who don't know, Tokyo Rose was the name given to the women who were part of the Japanese propaganda directed towards American forces during the war. American servicemen would listen to broadcasts from Tokyo, trying to read between the lines to learn how the war was really going from what she said on these broadcasts. Tokyo Rose tried to undermine the American forces in the war and dampen the morale of the troops in the Pacific.
I had a friend. She was in New Guinea, too. She told me how they had to dig foxholes and how they filled up with water when it rained. She said that one night the air raid siren went off and they were all told to run and jump in their foxholes. She said to me, mine was filled with water. And I said, I'd rather die in an airway than get muddy in a foxhole.
Well, we were drowning when a truck showed up. They had some films. They were showing news films. And what do you think they were showing? Providence, Brown University football on Elm Grove Avenue. And you could look up Elm Grove Avenue and you could see the goalposts. And there's my nephew sitting on the front porch of my sister's house watching the game. My sister lived across the street from the stadium. So as we're watching, they kick the ball over the goalpost. And my sister opens the front door, comes out from the living room onto the porch. Oh, I remember yelling, my family, my family. But it's pouring rain in New Guinea.
Well, I wrote to my family, my mother, 5-6 days a week during the war. The only means of communication in those days was by mail. In the early days of the war, people just waited for the mailman every day. They just stood on the sidewalk for the mailman to come. So I knew that the best thing that I could do for my family was to send a letter. So I wrote almost every day of the week, just telling her things that were going on, and she saved all my letters.
Lisa, I am so happy that you mentioned your letters. When Louisa told me that story, I was amazed. I kept thinking how remarkable that her mother had the foresight to save them all. A while ago, I asked Louisa if I could read them, and she allowed me the honor to do so. And I told her this before, so I am not telling tales out of school. They are absolutely wonderful, such amazing
Just
details.
with everyday stuff, they're not very interesting.
Well, I think they're very interesting. In fact, I made copies of a few that I thought were particularly interesting, knowing that we would be meeting again for one of these teas. So I brought them with me, and I want to know if it's okay to share them with everyone.
Sure.
If you think it would be helpful.
I do. I do. Okay, here is the one from June 9, addressed to your mother while you were still in boot camp at Hunter College. I think I've marched a couple hundred miles since I've been here, but it's all been within 5 square blocks. Yesterday, today, and tomorrow we're all upset because Paramount studio men are around mixing things up. Yesterday, we had to practice and practice that song at the amphitheater. This morning at 9 o'clock, they marched us down to the parade ground and we sang that darn song over and over again till 11:30 so they could record it. We were given a... Let me stop here and explain. During the war, a number of films were made by Hollywood as part of the war effort to instill patriotism. So, just by chance, while Louisa was at boot camp at Hunter College, Paramount Studios was there, shooting outdoor footage for a film called
Here Come the Waves. It starred Betty Hutton.
and Bing Crosby. Betty Hutton played twin sisters who both enlist. Anyway, I was able to track down a copy of that film, and I wanted to play the scene of Louisa and her fellow waves marching and singing that darn song over and over again.
Thank you.
about all the different jobs you had.
Before we do, I'd like to share a story about a friend of mine who met her husband through the mail. That's how they met, by letter. I had several girlfriends in the service. We were stationed in Nebraska together, Dorothy and William May. Dorothy noticed William May hardly ever got any mail from home. This was on account of how her mother wasn't a good writer and had so many younger kids to take care of. She never got any time to write. Dorothy was engaged to a man named Carl Dallenberg. So Dorothy asked Carl's brother Peter to write to. The poor girl never got any letters. He wrote faithfully all through the war. They fell in love while he floated around on a boat. They tried to meet up a couple of times, but it never worked out. When he came in, she got shipped out. When she arrived, his ship went somewhere else. But that's how they met, by letter.
I got married in the service. Well, I'd known him since I was 17. Every time he was going to come home, he was transferred and we had to find a different date. When I went in the service, he got all excited because he was going to come home. And I said, hey, buddy, I wasn't going to wait forever.
But you did finally marry him.
Yeah. Before the war ended, we were married, and then I got pregnant, and I had to get out of it. After that, I joined the reserves for a year.
I had a boyfriend in the Air Force. He was stationed in France. No, Italy. And I used to send him a loaf of Italian bread with a bottle of liquor in it. I used to take the dough out and put the bottle in. My brother was a mailman. He used to say, you know, Helen, that's against the law. I said, well, he likes it, so I sent it. One time I was almost broke. I couldn't afford a bottle, so I bought a pint. They had flat bottles, so I put it in a fruitcake. Like Marie Antoinette, let them eat cake.
It was at Dorothy and Carl's wedding in New York City that William A. and Peter finally met. For 4 years, they had never dated anybody. He took her to dinner in New York while they were both still there. That was their first date. Then he went out to Dayton in Ohio to propose. This was 1948, I think. They only had 4 dates before they were married.
Wow, that's amazing. Talk about love at first sight.
I don't think I could have waited 4 years, only communicating by letter. Harold was already in the service. He was actually taking my sister out.
Oh, yeah.
I remember I wrote in my diary, he's just the kind of man I want to marry. Oh, I can't believe I said that. Anyway, I remember we started talking and we started a relationship before he left for the war. He was in the Air Force and we went to a bar mitzvah in the fall. And when he went and got his wings, he came back and he proposed to me. And then he left for Anzio and Monte Cassino.
There was an area set aside for service people called Spanaway, where you could go swimming. So my friend Jessie and I were swimming, and there were these 2 GIs diving from the pool. And the shorter one got on the shoulders of the other one, and he toppled off. He almost fell on me. But instead, he fell for me. We had a lengthy courtship. 3 months. We were married for 53 years.
Well, we had found a house in Pawtucket, and I was married on the 4th of July. And we used to sit on the front porch for hours talking. And I used to say to myself, this is how we're getting acquainted. This is how we're getting to know what we are like. And I think that's what must have happened to a lot of girls. I think it is very good that we were able to work it out.
Louisa, can I get you to read one of your letters? I know you've got something interesting to say on the subject. In fact, I noticed that it was one of the few letters that you wrote to your father. Almost all your letters were addressed to your mother.
My dearest Papa, I received your letter this morning, and it was so wonderful to hear from you. I've written to Mama and explained in that letter why it is impossible for me to come home to be married. The Navy just doesn't see things that way. I've prayed and prayed and prayed to ask God for everything to work out right so that everything will be happy for everyone. And I'm doing my best to please you. I want you and Mama to be happy, you know that. Hugh and I are very much in love, and we're doing our best not to let it get the best of us, as you said. We've got so that we say goodbye at 9:30 or 10 o'clock every night, because if we stay up later, it's hard on both of us, and we don't want to do anything we'd be sorry for later. That's one reason we figured it would be best to be married soon. I know you'll understand. I can see your point, and Mama's point, and I think you can see our point too. So please, you and Papa talk over all I've written to you both, and we will wait for your answer. I love you very much. Your loving daughter, Louisa.
The Navy wouldn't leave you leave, and it sounds like things were getting a little...
Yes, and yes. Well, the good news is that the very next day after this letter, I was able to write home to my dearest folks and tell them that I could get leave to come home to get married. I mean, we only had 5 days plus travel time by train. It was barely enough time, but it was enough.
Well, now that we all know a lot more about your love lives, I'd really like to know more about what each of you did in the service.
Well, they gave me a job going to the schools in Chattanooga, recruiting. They told me what universities to go to, and I had my own staff car, which was great. So we're going through the mountains, and there's only one way in and one way out. You could not come back if you made an error. And I was with this woman who had been in a horrible accident. She had stitches on her forehead and on her face, but I didn't know. So we're going through the mountains, and every time I made a mistake, when I first went in, they asked me if I could drive. And I said yes. But in reality, I had only had 3 lessons from my father before I joined. And after the 3rd lesson, he said, "Bloody hell, you're skipping all my gears." And that was that. So we're going through the mountains. And every time I made a mistake, and I made a lot of them, she would say, "When I get back, I'm telling the colonel on you, after the bad accident I had and what you put me through." So by the time we got to the other side of the mountain, I had no tires. My tires were gone. I was riding on rims. We had to go and buy tires for the car. It was just ridiculous.
From supplies, I was transferred to the motor transport. I had originally wanted to be a recruiter, but I had no college, so I couldn't be a recruiter. But I drove everything. Command, reconnaissance, the Jeep, weapons carrier. One day, they asked me to pick up some goods from the depot. I had to have 3 men with me to pick the stuff up. We take the truck to the depot and load everything in. Everything was fine until we get to the main highway. I had to stop for traffic, and then nothing. The truck was dead. I said, "Oh no. Do any of you boys in the back know anything about the truck?" Nobody knew anything. So I lift up the hood, and I'm getting all this, "Boo-hoo-hoo, we won't have to go overseas. We'll be here for the duration." And all this hooting and hollering about how, oh, she's gonna repair it. I said to myself, oh my God, the battery was broken. It was all bent like. So I said, Is there any string around any of those boxes? Oh, we're gonna get the truck fixed for spring. Everything is gonna be all right. They handed me a piece of cord. I meshed it around the battery, got back in the truck, turned the key, and it sparked! I got a big hooray!
Well, I had an interview as a weather observer, but they wouldn't let me have it because they said it'd be too much eye strain for me. So my second choice was as a link trainer, teaching pilots how to fly blind using only their instruments. So they seemed to approve of me for that, so they put me in the running for it. I had to take a teaching test and a voice test because link trainers had to have a very clear voice without any regional accents. Oh, so the girls from the South, well, they were definitely on the running, you know, because of their accent. Competition for that job was keen. It was very popular with the girls.
I wonder why. Could have been spending all that time with handsome young man pilots.
A wave puts her country before her comfort.
That's right.
Could you tell us all about a link trainer a little bit more?
A link trainer taught pilots how to come in when the weather closed in on them. In those days, most pilots flew by sight, so when the weather closed in, they didn't know where they were. So we taught them with the aid of a simulator called a link trainer. It was like being in a plane. In fact, we had to fly in an actual plane so that we could hear the real signal, so we would know how to do this when they were in the air. Oh, and there's one in the Smithsonian, by the way.
I was in charge of basic communications. At first, it was mostly a matter of changing the transmitters in the evening time, because at night, radio waves go farther.
We had a dangerous job, but I didn't think so at the time. Guarding prisoners of war, German prisoners. We had to watch them close. But the Italians we trusted. They could hang around. We weren't supposed to leave our sentry boxes, but I was always nosy. When I came out of the box, these guys, these Marines would come down and say, "Look at that little girl over there. In my little Jeep, I choose, I walk along the street. In my little cotton rose, I give the boys a treat. My skirt is like a barracks bag, my hat is like a pot. But I'm in the army now, and this is what I got. In my raincoat extra small, I look just like a sack. But I'm in the army now, and proud to be a whack. The army issues clothes all right, they make you look in awful sight, just like a mare that runs at night. I'm in the army now.
I didn't realize it at the time, but I was scared. You know, I was scared. But I was always a fighter. I was backed up against a wall. I knew how to fight. I used to always say, that big fat mouth of mine never knew when to shut up.
Well, I was also in charge of maintaining the intercoms and public address systems. In fact, the PA didn't cover all the fields, so we had a sound truck to go around in, especially when we were on alert. And when we had visiting dignitaries, they would have meetings outside, and I would have to set up the microphones. Oh, I got to meet Jack Dempsey. Oh, what a gentleman. He was in the Navy pushing war bonds. Wallace Berry and Jackie Coogan. Oh, he was in the paratroopers. So many.
Well, I will never forget the takeoff of my first flight. We were zooming along the runway, and the first thing I knew, the ground was 200 feet below me. I was sitting all alone in the back in the tail, looking out the window, and I was just getting used to the idea that there was nothing between me and the earth but 500, 600 feet of empty air, when we soared to 7,000 feet. Oh, you can't imagine the wonder of it. I mean, I had a chance to watch all of my training in actual practice. So after about 3 hours, we were heading back home. The pilot turned to me and he said, "You want to fly it?" Well, it took me exactly 3 seconds to decide. I said to myself, "Louisa, you will never forgive yourself if you let this chance go by." So I said, "Sure." So I sat in the pilot seat, and the pilot sat in the co-pilot seat, and he showed me what course to follow. And I flew. For 15 minutes, I flew that plane alone. Well, we were almost to Atlanta when we switched seats, and I thought the ground was going to come right up and hit us. I mean, we seemed to come down so fast, and I just gasped. Everybody on the plane laughed, but I flew.
Louisa, how exciting. I was right there with you.
So, I was in this line, requisition. There were 2 GIs in this line. The 2 GIs were separated, one in front of me, one in back. One kept saying, "Shushies, shushies." The other one, "I don't know." Well, all you could do was ask. I finally say, "Ask me what?" The one in the back says, "This is Friday, and I made chicken soup. We're cooks." So this is Manila now. And they both say to me, "Would you like a nice bowl of chicken soup?" I said, "Providing I can get the drumstick." "With pleasure." "Are you Jewish?" "Yes, yes I am." I told them I had no transportation, but they said, "Don't worry, we'll take care of it." I finished my business, they finished theirs, and then they took me to where they lived. They lived in a house of officers. They did the cooking and the cleaning. They were the GI's housekeeping. Hey, it was better than out shooting with planes and all. So, this fellow comes walking into the kitchen, and one of the GIs, the cook, says, "Oh, we didn't expect you." And I look at him, and he looks at me, and he says, "Helen, what are you doing here? You two know each other?" "Yes, we're cousins." All over the world, and here we are. Oh my goodness.
I wouldn't trade 1 minute of my time in the service. I think it was the most wonderful part, besides my marriages. I think it was the next wonderful thing, going in the service.
All in all, it was a great experience. It gave me a lot of confidence I don't think I ever had before.
Well, as I said before, you meet so many wonderful people in the service.
Well, I think that's a great place to end. So thank you all for sharing your wonderful
Before we go, I'd love it if we could sing one more song together. It's one of my favorites. We always sing it at our American Legion meetings. I'm sure you all know the words to "God Bless America." And if you don't, just follow me. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans, white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my